Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to my soulful, excuse me, my heart-to-heart soulful conversation. I'm Charlotte McGinnis, and I have a great guest I'm very excited to share with you this evening, Reverend Dr. Barb Rothwell. Barb, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so happy you said yes, and so happy that you're here. And, interestingly, I have known most of the people that I've brought on to this heart-to-heart conversation, I've known in some
Mhm.
capacity, many through the ministry and other means. And I always find it interesting. I think I know a person, then all of a sudden, even last week with Ed, we're very close. I
Mhm.
thought I knew Ed well, and my gosh, what I learned about him was remarkable. And it was so much fun to bring that up. And then with you going over your bio, having a conversation with you just now, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't have any idea. I mean, I knew you were an artist, okay? I knew you lived in Wisconsin, but to be honest, when I knew you were into your artistry, I thought you were a quilter and did maybe some folk art. I had no idea to the extent, and then your background in it. So I definitely want to touch base on that. And I thought it'd be a good place to start because you're the founder of a not-for-profit organization, Creative Visual Workshops.
Mhm.
And how long have you had that?
I've had that now since I think 1920,
Not 1920.
not 19, excuse me. How about if I just switch that around and say it would probably be about since 20, oh, 10, I think, 2020, 2020. I can't talk.
2010.
2010, yes.
Okay. Well, it's a remarkable organization. I had no idea to the extent which you were involved in this. And again, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But you come from we were talking about your family of artists,
Mhm.
and you said your grandfather was an artist, your father was an artist, and they were a little more than an artist. And
Yes.
tell the group about your grandfather, what he did for the government. That is remarkable.
Well, back in the day, um, he he started out as a photographer and did other things, but he was always an artist. And when I was a young child, I was probably about, I don't exactly know what age, but we went out for a visit to see him. And in his living room, there was this big, huge glass like plaque. I think it was like 3 feet by 3 feet, whatever. And I didn't really recognize it because I was too young to understand it at the time, but it was the presidential seal. At that time, all the presidential seals, the ones on the podium, the cabinet license plates were all done by hand. And that's what my grandfather did. And I know that when we were there visiting, the one he had just completed, it had the 49 stars, which were all individually the same size, all the way around completed. And guess what? They added a 50th state. So he had to start all over again. But he did that kind of work. He also, at one time, worked for a greeting card company. Um, and I have several things in my home that he has done. A couple of the cabinet license plates and some other artwork that he's done, paintings, etc. So he was a true artist. And when he died, um, the government wanted my father to take over, and my father said, "No way." He didn't want the responsibility. Besides, he was already um, as a minister at that time because he started out in advertising and then went into the ministry. And I kind of followed suit too because I was in advertising um, before I had some medical problems that I had to leave. And shortly after that, my daughter died, and I met up with two really interesting individuals who came from the town that I lived in for 2 years, which I considered the two worst years of my life, and that was Dubuque, Iowa. However, they were two ADL ministers. And that was in 1975. And that's when I started studying with our founder, Reverend Dr. Barbara Sawa. So that's how I started.
Wow.
But it all started from a very creative way through artwork. And I met these two ministers because at that time I was selling, now don't laugh at me, I was selling cathedral candles that I made. They were 6-foot candles for several churches. And the shop that I
out of? What did you make?
they were
Wax?
made out of beeswax
Beeswax?
and regular wax. But the store that I was selling them out of, these two individuals came to give a talk that evening, and I stayed for the talk.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Well, that was fate, I tell you.
That was fate, yes.
Oh, well, you
And
know, and you have not fallen far from the tree of your family. You know,
no,
your grandfather being an artist, your father was an artist, and then a Lutheran minister, correct?
right?
And now you're exactly both of those. And you came in the back door, maybe not the Lutheran door, but through the ADL door. And we're going to talk more in a few minutes about ADL and your journey into that. But
Mhm.
I do find it, you know, you said you grew up in Detroit,
Yes,
and of course I've been there. I know Detroit, and that's a different environment, I would say.
definitely.
But you said that when you married, you left Detroit, and that's when you landed in Wisconsin, correct?
Actually, I was born in Wisconsin.
Oh,
Um, and then when my father went to seminary, we moved to Dubuque and
mm,
then got a parish in Detroit. So that's how I got to Detroit. And what I called my formative years from age 10 until 19, I was in Detroit. Um,
mm,
and even though I went my first year of college in Detroit, um, after I got married, we started a family and said, don't want to bring up our kids here. Um,
yeah,
because it was I worked downtown Detroit during the riots, and that was interesting.
yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah.
Wow. So how many children do you have?
I had two children. My daughter died when she was 5, but now my son, who was the younger of the two, is 53. So
And grandchildren, I presume?
um, somewhere along the way, I accumulated, not from my son, totally from my son, but from my late husband. We have 20 grandchildren. No, we have 22 grandchildren and 30 great-grandchildren.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And out of there, I have one child and 3 grandchildren. So,
Wow. Well, you
yes.
know, but they're all yours, right?
Well, they are. They are. I actually I went to one of the younger ones' first birthday just about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
they're a
well,
great
and I
joy.
know you're recently widowed this
Yes.
past year. So I know
Yeah.
that was not, how long were you married to your latest husband?
Well, we were together for 12 years. And previous to that, I had lost my previous husband and we were together for 20 years. So if you add up all the times I've been married over 50 years.
Wow.
Not always the same person, but
Well, that's what your soul came in to do, right?
that's right. I kind of thought that with my latest husband that passed, that we thought we were going to be great together and live a long life together because my mother lived to 100, his father lived to 97. And Spirit didn't have it that way. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, I know you two were deeply in love with each other and you took very good care of them. I can remember being involved with you on some ministerial duties and you were always back and forth having to take good care of them. And I know that wasn't an easy job and
no, it wasn't.
yeah,
Yeah.
but well, I know that's not an easy thing at all to go through And you're a remarkable woman in many ways, Barb. And the way we've connected has been through, as you mentioned, ADL, Alliance of
Yes.
Divine Love Ministry, which so you met those gals in Dubuque, Iowa. Where were they ordained? Were they
Actually, let's see, I'm trying to remember where I think Barb Selwa was in North Carolina at the time, and they
maybe
had gone, it was a husband and wife.
Oh, oh, oh.
They had gone there and were ordained there. They came back to Iowa and then came to visit in Wisconsin and actually liked it so much up here that they stayed here and continued their ministry here until they moved out to, I think it was Idaho.
Oh, wow.
And now his wife died and he is now back in Dubuque again. But um, that was back in 1975 when I started with ADL.
So
So
you're what's your chapel number?
28.
28. So for those of you that don't, ADL is the ministry we're ordained in, Alliance of Divine Love. The chapel number started at 1. And so we have, I think we're up to like 2,300 or 2,400 right now. So number 28, that is a early bird.
There aren't any numbers lower than mine, which makes me feel older than I am.
Well, I tell you, it's that's an amazing feat. And actually, you're the longest term minister in the ministry right now. And Sandy Bologna may be up there somewhere fairly close. She's been in the ministry a long time too. I don't know any other long timers. Maybe you do, but when you think of it,
there are some, but I spent the first many years doing my ministry around my professional career, which was most part of it was for the state of Wisconsin because I worked for them for 26 years. But you still are in connection with ADL ministers through conferences. And I used to, when I first started out, we didn't have cell phones. Long distance calls were expensive. So with most of my times with, well, most of my times with Barb Salwo was by written letter, and I still have all my letters. And as the technology progressed, we got to where we would call each other. But even at that, she was busy, I was busy. So we kept in touch, but probably not as much as either and I would have wanted to. But over the years, I've met other people through ADL that I'm still in contact with that used to be extremely active and now have kind of stepped back, partly because of age, partly because of the fact that they're still involved with the ministry, but maybe in different ways than they used to be.
Right, right. Well, and it's nice to let the little younger whippersnappers step in there and do something.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my mission is like, we got to empower the youth. And so we got some great youngsters coming in and that's a wonderful thing. And I'm grateful for that. And you had actually just recently, I would say recently, 2018, you got your DDMS with ADL, your doctorate.
Yep, 2019. Yep. Yeah.
2019.
I waited until after I was through with my professional career. I mean, I'd gone back to school several times through the years. If you read my bio, you can see I've took a lot of different avenues and to try to figure out exactly which way my life was going. And I mean, when you start out in journalism and then you switch to medical science, then to theology, and then international development, business management, technology, it works its way through a lot of study. But I wanted to wait until after that I had more time to work on my doctorate. And as it turned out, my husband, I just started the doctoral program when my husband got sick for the first time. So the fact that he was hospitalized for a month. I did a lot of studying because there wasn't much else to do, you know, and that helped. And he was a great support to me for that.
That's
Uh,
wonderful.
but yeah, I through the years before I retired, I was also involved in many nonprofit organizations that I could use what I had learned through all my educational processes to help with that. Uh,
Mhm.
there was a lot of, I was with Sister Cities International for quite a few years and would help cities write their bylaws, write their, you know, association um, credentials, etc., and to help them get started with,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
Well, and so what was your thesis on with ADL? I remember, but I was there.
The
I'll let
power
you
of the
go through.
soul. Yeah, my thesis was on the power of the soul,
Mhm.
and um, it it went through a lot of what my experienced in my life, um, a lot of the research that's gone out now about how the soul can change things just by using what's in you. And I think part of that led to um, the nonprofit that I have now, which one of the main things is we call artistic transformation. And that's being able to change yourself um, through examples of things that you can create. Not only can you create them with your hands, you can create them with your mind and with your body.
Mhm.
And that's that in the years since that's been done. And I think I mentioned to you that it started, you know, 2018, 19, but actually before that, before it became a nonprofit organization, I had been doing that through my ministry, starting back probably about 2013 and working with homeless people that were looking for job, career, trying to get into the job market, etc., and helping them realize what knowledge they had that they really didn't realize they had. You know, it's like if you've taken care of a household, well, you should be able to know how to manage money and little things like that that you do. If you're the one at home that actually not just when the light bulb goes out, but you can rewire a lamp because you're too poor to go out and buy a new one. Those
Mhm.
skills can be used for other things. And that's kind of what we try to do with the nonprofit. It's like, look at what your current knowledge base and how you can use that in different avenues and how that knowledge can help you. I think when we talked before, I used the example that I have on my website about a gourd. You know,
Yeah.
it's a kind of an ugly thing. A dried gourd is not that attractive. Yeah, you can make bird houses out of them, but you can also make other things out of them. And the outside's usually moldy and cruddy looking, and you just need to clean that off, you know, kind of clean yourself up. Okay.
Mhm.
You cut a gourd open and it's yucky inside. It's dried and it's got a lot of dust. You have to wear a mask, but you clean that all out, and what you have is a nice looking bowl.
Yeah,
And
I was
stain,
amazed by the pictures, Barb, the transformation.
yeah, if you stain that, or if you just give it a wax rub or whatever, you bring out all of those what some people call, you know, deficiencies or whatever, but you bring them out to make them look beautiful. You can add a little bit of paint or a little dye and make the outside look beautiful, add a little trim on it. Sometimes they use caning, sometimes you use crochet, some different things to make it look pretty. And
Hmm.
and when you're done, it's looks so much different and it's appealing. And that's kind of like what we try to teach people, that you can take yourself and do the same thing. Um,
Exactly.
I used to make, I still do, make drums. And I have drums that look like dogs. the dog head or a cat head,
What
turn
do
it
you
over.
make them out of? What do you make
I
your
make
drum?
them out of gourds.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah, the bottom
okay,
half
that
that
makes
sits
sense.
down flat is the gourd heads, or is the drum head. Turn it over, and there's your drum. And I've
Perfect.
made big ones, little ones, or whatever. But it's a transformation process that takes from one aspect of an item or an individual and transforms it into something else. And
Hmm.
I was brought up that for everything you have, it should have two purposes. It can't just look pretty sitting on the shelf. It has to be useful. And that's what I've applied with the gourds, uh,
Hmm.
basses, bowls, drums, flutes. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's
You make flutes out of gourds too?
yes, do.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, we got
Yeah,
to hook you up with Ed because Ed's very creative that way too. He was on last week
yeah,
and he makes instruments out of the most random things as well.
yeah, yeah. I've made a lot of stringed instruments out of gourds. Yeah. It's a whole it's a whole process, but at this point in my life, I still have a whole box of gourds that I have ideas that I want to make with them. Um, and I just am waiting for the right time to do it. But for the most, I think when I married Dick and moved up to where I'm living now, I got rid of about 1,000 gourds because I just didn't have room for them.
How
Um,
big are they? How big are the gourds, if you could kind of
it depends. I mean, gourds can be like this big around, or it could be this big around, and you
all
can
shapes
even
and
even
sizes?
down to small sizes. Yeah. I
You
mean, I
did
make
all shapes and
all
sizes.
shapes and sizes. Yeah. I've used some gourds I've made clocks out of. So I've got one hanging downstairs, but they can be used in so many things. And people don't realize that gourds have been used since the beginning of time, when people found out that you could cut the top off, clean out the inside, and use it as a water jug.
Right.
You
That's,
know, so yeah, that's
that's,
was
when
just
did you get into gourds? How did that ever develop?
I had an aunt who retired. She was a school teacher. Her mother used to paint eggs, all different sizes, ostrich eggs, little regular eggs, and she wanted something different. So her family were farmers in Wisconsin. They owned a lot of farmland. They were one of the big farm people in Wisconsin. And so she latched onto some gourds and she started working with them. I said, "Oh, that looks like that would be fun." And I had just retired, and I thought, that's something that I could do. And it wouldn't, I lived out in the country at that time and had plenty of room. I don't live in the country anymore. I don't have that much room, which is why I don't have that many gourds. But it was a lot of fun. Actually, I took when I went to Korea with the for the International Folk Festival. I was the American artisan that went, and I took
Wow.
my gourds there. And I mean, you can make boxes out of them and all sorts of different things. And um, that was one of the nice benefits of this new media that I found.
That's
Uh,
amazing. Well, I love your metaphor of really using the gourd as as what we can do for ourselves. We
yes.
can clean ourselves up on the outside and bring out the beauty on the inside and
Mhm.
transform ourselves. So you're definitely an art therapist. I would say ultimately that's what you are. And you bring your ministry into everything you do. Sounds like you've been doing it for years and years.
Yeah.
I've got to go back to two things. Number one, I wanted to ask you earlier, and this is just it's funny how my mind is like, what the heck did your grandfather, what was that presidential seal made of? Was it metal? Was it wood? What I don't
It
know
was
why.
glass.
Oh, glass.
It
Okay.
was glass. Well, I'll take that back. Some of it was the license plates, of course, were metal.
Mhm.
The seal was done on glass.
Mm.
And don't ask me why, but that's what they used. At least that's the one I saw.
Okay.
I don't know because this was for the podium one.
Mhm.
I don't know what they used. I'm sure there was metal for the planes and other things, but the one I saw was glass.
So
Yeah.
he did this for the podium of the president?
Yes.
Oh my goodness,
He
wow.
did all the presidential seals. Yeah. He was the only artist that did that um,
That's
at
amazing.
that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, and I'm like, I got to find out what that was made out of, but that makes sense. And then earlier, you had also mentioned something to me. Your first art exhibit, you were only 17 years old. How did that happen? What was that?
Well, I I was very close to my father because he had his office at the house, which is also the parsonage, but he had his ministerial office downstairs, and up on the second floor where I was, there were two bedrooms. One he used as a studio because he still did artwork. And I wasn't really allowed to bother him, but as I got older, I started doing drawings and other things and paintings. And so I was finally let into his studio. About age 15, he decided that I was good for something, and that was doing mat work, um, which was for framing. But he also taught me several things on how to restore paintings. One of the things that he learned from his father was restoration. And I would come up into studios, and there would be like a Renoir or Picasso that had things that needed to be fixed. It was, a painting that needed to be touched up or had some damage to it. And my father would do that. He taught me how to do that.
Mm.
Um, I touched up one of my grandfather's paintings that had a rip and a tear in it. And everybody said, oh, just throw it away. No, 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 no. You don't do that. You don't do that to artwork. So I repaired it, and no one could tell the difference from
Oh.
my grandfather's work from what I restored it to. My father also worked in antique prints, and he um, would do the watercolor, which when they did prints, they just print them off. They were all black and white. But in order for them to be displayed anywhere, they had to be colored. So they were all hand colored with watercolors. So he
Mm.
taught me how to do that too. And so that's kind of how I developed my own way of doing things. And I had a few of I knew some of his friends that dealt in artwork, and they asked, would you like to have your work in the gallery show? I said, sure. I mean, who wouldn't? I was
Yeah,
17 years
yeah.
old. I just graduated from high school and I was going to college, and sure, I would love to do that. So that's how that all came about. That
Oh, wow, that's very awesome. Wow.
It was at that time, it was oil paintings that I was doing. So yeah.
Mhm. And the Biltmore home is here close to where we live in Asheville.
Been
And of
there.
course, they have a whole department that restores the paintings. I mean, all
Yeah.
these old, beautiful paintings. And it's very meticulous work and
Right.
intricate. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, well, you could come here and get a job if you ever.
No, 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 no.
Now you're retired, you're doing,
I'm retired. I'm
yeah.
retired.
Well, you
Yeah.
say that, Ellen.
I retired. I'm retired, but yes, I still do. I've branched out into, like you mentioned, quilting. I do quilts. And I would just for you, Charlotte, I just wanted to show you this. Okay. See this nice, whoop, I don't see if you can, okay. See
Now I
this nice
can
little
look at
hat?
it. Yeah, yeah, it's
Okay,
beautiful.
that's one of my creations.
What is that made of?
It's made out of yarn.
Oh,
It's made out of
cool.
yarn.
That's
Yeah. This
beautiful.
is this is for a young girl. I mean, I put it on my head, and I have size wise, it's not, I don't have a big head in more than one way, but this is for probably, oh, she's going to be 8, 9 year old. It's not
Oh,
a baby, but it's a young girl's hat. But yeah, I whipped that one up. I shouldn't tell you this. I whipped it up last night.
oh
Um,
my, you did that just in an evening?
yeah, sitting down at the end of the day and sitting down in front of a TV, the old family model, idle hands makes the devil's workshop. Yeah. So I'm either crocheting or knitting or something while I'm watching TV.
Oh,
So,
that's wonderful.
but
That's
I had it just because I did that last night. And I thought, oh, I bet you Charlotte would like this.
I loved seeing that. Well, see, you're just amazing me more and more with all your gifts and talents here. So that's wonderful. Well, so moving forward, you were elected as the president of our organization. You are currently
Yes.
our president. I too was the president of ADL, and I know it's not an easy job, but
Oh,
certainly appreciate your service and all you give to it. You give so much time and energy. I know that for a fact. It's like a full-time job, isn't it?
I call you often enough.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I'm here to serve. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it takes a lot of time and love and effort and things, right now it seems as though we recently, well, the Namaste Center, which we had years ago here
Mhm.
in Flat Rock, I started that. And we've been closed for a few years, and there's been a void, and people have been wanting some sort of community, and I was not willing to take on another community per
Yeah.
se. But we're doing monthly the gatherings. We're like Buckminster Fuller. We're creating a new model, and it's like we can't. And who else is it that Einstein says we can't make the changes with the same mind that created the problem, right? And
Oh,
so
exactly.
it's everything is the new model. Everything. It's very cool. We're meeting once a month. We have a free place to meet. It's a lovely venue. We're just, everyone brings food, and then we're just networking, and people can say, oh, I teach this class, or I'm offering this or this. So we're doing like our uh, spiritual community in a new way, and it's very cool. So I think that part of the new paradigm, I feel like we're in a time of great transformation on the
Mhm.
planet, we have to let go of everything we cling to and be open to spirit leading us to new and even better things. And I
Yes.
know that's what you're doing with our organization. And I,
Trying to, yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I learned many years ago was the fact that the best thing you can do is to share your knowledge with others. Don't try to keep it to yourself because that doesn't do you any good, but you can show others how to do things, have new experiences, and you can explain the pitfalls that you've gone through, and hope and hope that they don't do the same. But yeah, and I think one of the best things that my father once said to me when I was a teenager, and being a pastor's kid is not the best thing because you don't have a lot of friends because they're always worried that it might get that back to mom and dad, what's going on. So um and I had friends of different faiths, and they'd say, well, is it okay if you come to our church? I said, sure. My dad doesn't care. And I know that because he told me, and I think I was about 11 or 12, and he said, I don't care whatever church you go to, whatever faith you decide to be with. He said, always remember and always believe in God or a spiritual being. And I took him at his word. And so I've always thought that what guides me is spirit, and whatever path spirit has in mind for me, I will gladly follow. And if I screw up, it's probably for my own good,
mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
know, um, and to help others. I mean, that was one of the things that I think that I also learned from my dad was that we're here to serve others, not ourselves. And if you can have a good life, it 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 is going to show to others. And I can truthfully say that there were times in my life when I had $30 a week to live on and raise a son because I was a single mom at that time. Things have changed over the years. I kind of pulled up my bootstraps and said, I'm not going to be down and out. I'm going to do whatever I can do to make my life easier, make my son's life easier, and people around me. And so now I'm at a point in my life where I'm able to give more than just myself. I can give financially to organizations that I think are doing good, and share not only my talents and my thoughts, but share what I have. And that's one of the reasons also I have the nonprofit, is to be able to share with others and try to make other people's lives just a little bit better, a little bit more loving.
Yeah, well, and you're very good at it, and you are an example of that. I do believe that after it's all, if those of us that are on a, what I would say, conscious spiritual path, at the end of the day, it all comes down to service. I mean, we're just here to serve, and it's show me where to go, what to do, what to say, and to whom is a mantra from the course. And we're just, I think, naturally more generous. You want to support each other and
Mhm.
in every which way possible. And
Right.
yeah, and you're certainly doing that. And like I said, the presidency of ADL alone, in addition to everything you do, but that alone is a full-time job, volunteer job. Uh, yeah, but
Yes.
yeah. So what are your what's your spiritual uh practice? Do you have any specific teachings that resonate to you more than the others? Are they Christian based or?
Um, well, growing up, they were always Christian based.
Mhm.
But then I had an experience when I was in Japan. Uh, I was with a friend, and actually it was the person I was staying with, and we went to the giant Buddha in um, Kikigawa,
Wow.
and we walked inside, and she stayed outside. She said, I've been there a million times, so. So I walked inside and I just stood there and looked at the amazement of this big statue. And all of a sudden, and I'm not kidding you, all of a sudden I'm staring there, and the sides of the Buddha disappeared and I could see outside.
Mm,
And that to me meant you need to see outside yourself and see what's in the world around you and help those that are less fortunate.
that's
So
amazing.
that was a big, big experience. Um, I had had a similar experience. And actually, this was when I was very young. Um, I think I was about 4 or 5. And in my bedroom, um, it was one of those, you're a little kid by yourself. You're not, we lived out in the country, so I didn't have any friends that lived close. And I was just sitting there, and one day I heard this voice. So I was kind of looking around. Who's that? I knew my mother was outside. My dad wasn't home. So who was this? And all of a sudden, um, the voice just said to me, "What you doing?" And I just, kind of looked around and thought, "Who's here? There's no one here. It's my mom's outside working in the garden. I'm just inside reading my book." We're looking at a picture book. And then the voice said, "Would you like to go there?" I was looking at, I think it was a National Geographic or something like that, of, I think it was the pyramids. And I said, sure. And he said, well, let's go. That's when I learned how to travel in my mind.
Wow. So you were astral traveling then?
I was astral traveling then. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing it. Yeah. And then I was a little bit older and I was talking to my friend and my dad came in the room. He said, you need to take a nap, stop talking, lay down. And after he left, I said, I can't talk to you anymore. And voice never came back. But even though the voice never came back that I could hear with my ears, I could hear it inside.
Wow.
So that's kind of, and I'm sorry to get a little emotional here.
Oh, I was going to ask you what, that's beautiful. And, that it's brought that up.
Because
I had Ed
it's
crying last week too. So I guess I'm like Barbara Walters.
but it's something that I've always been able to experience. And I know some people say, well, dreams aren't real. To me, dreams are really real because I just have to close my eyes and I can go wherever I want to go. Um, and which is one of the things in the doctoral program you learn how to do, which to me was like, oh, that's what I've been doing all this time, But
Yeah.
yeah, I've been able to do that. And then I found out I think I was in my 20s or something, and at a family gathering, and my grandmother was sitting there. I always say I was blessed by the heaven and the earth because my one grandmother's name was Stella, stars. My other grandmother's name was Hertha, earth.
Mm.
But she was talking about um, her mother and things that had gone off. And she said, oh yeah, your great grandmother was a clairvoyant. And she said, and I'm not as good as she is, but I still can do that. And I kind of went, wow, I didn't realize this.
Wow. So,
And so it kind of runs through the female line of the family. So there are times when I see things, and then I go, okay, fine. That must mean something. And then years later, sometimes not that long, all of a sudden I'll go, oh, that's what that was all about.
hmm.
I let's put it this way. I was a little skeptical about trying to fine tune it to see exactly where it would lead. And so I've let it lead me um, in certain things. And if I meditate on it, yes, I can come to conclusions, etc. But it's not something that I use to rule my life by. Um, I figure when spirit wants me to know something, he'll knock me over the head and say, hey, stupid, listen. And it has happened.
But do you know who that voice was? I mean,
The voice that I heard,
Mhm.
when I was little, I always called him the little man
Hmm.
because it was a male voice, um, with an accent. And I've tried over the years to try to think of what that accent reminds me, excuse me, especially in my travels. And um, the closest I can get to it is something that's Scottish or English type of accent. It was a very lilty accent. That's all I can say.
Mhm.
But I don't know what, don't know where it came from.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, in the
Yeah.
astral travel, that is, I know, a big part of our ministry. I'll put in a plug for the Angel Squad, which our
Yes.
founder, Dr. Selwa, created the few years ago. She recently passed in December and this last year. And anyway, it gives us an opportunity to come together first Saturday of the month. And at 3 p.m., you're all welcome to join us. And anyway, we do take little journeys to where we sort of float above the world and send love and healing blessings to the entire planet. That's a little more in detail than that, but a beautiful experience. And all are welcome to join us. And I'll tell you, when I was in my 20s, I went to a place in Boynton Beach. Actually, it's owned by Boynton Beach, Florida. I used to teach golf down there, and there was a gal who owned a store called Crystal Garden. Margaret's her name, Margaret Limbo, still an ADL minister. And anyway, she had classes and workshops, and I went to many of those. And I'd get off the golf course, go there. And there was a talk on astral travel, and they were selling cassette tapes. That's how long ago it was. So I bought a cassette tape, and I was a newbie, and I took it home, and I was like, "Oh, good, I'm going to do this." And immediately I put it in, and there I go. And so now it's like people are like, "Really, you did that?" I said, "Well, I didn't know that it was supposed to be a difficult thing." And I think that sometimes we can overthink things, and I just said, "Well, I bought the tape. It said that, you can astral travel with this meditation." I just assumed it was going to happen. So I think that it is a natural attribute within all of us. If we just
it is.
into it, we have these gifts, but we overthink, I think, way too many things. We got to let go,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing about trying to when you're retired, you kind of think, okay, now I'm free of a lot of things. That's not so true, because you've got those old habits that you've built up that you still rule your life by, and the old things you were taught as a kid. That's things that you remember and you kind of have in the back of your mind and help you through each day.
Mhm.
I kind of laugh because where I'm living, there's a large Amish community near here, and they speak Pennsylvania Deutsch. And every once in a while, I can pick up what they're saying, because when I was growing up, my parents would always speak German when they didn't want me to understand what they were talking about. That lasted until I got into high school and took German.
What was your birth name?
My last name?
Yes.
Von Trott. Von Trott. I mean, it's actually my great grandfather's name was Baron Albert von Schradwatz von Hohenzollern von Hisegasiel von Trott.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a German baron, but luckily he came over before the problem. And if you ever, I'm sure you've been as old as we are, I'll say that nicely, during World War II, when the assassination was tried on Hitler, with the bomb, etc., etc. And the people that were involved with that were hung. One of those was my cousin.
Oh, wow.
Adam von Trott. And he was the godfather to my cousin, who is still living in Germany.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
You ever
So
go back to Germany?
I've been to my cousin's once. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I do exchange Christmas cards, but it's a long way to travel to see a relative.
Yeah.
Not that I haven't traveled a lot. It's just that my previous husband traveled a lot. He was also in international sales, and actually he was stationed in Germany for a while. So we did travel a lot. I've been in, I think, 35 countries, and we did a lot of traveling, but I only have been back to Germany once, so
Oh, wow.
badly about that, but that's
Oh,
life.
I'm sure it's beautiful. And
It is.
yeah. And well, I tell you, Barb, I've enjoyed having this opportunity to connect and learn more about you. I really feel like everybody's got so much more to them than any of us ever know. And you've certainly been an example of that, and appreciate all you do for so many people and for our ministry and for me. And is there anything you'd like to add before we close?
Um, I don't think publicly, because really you've learned this much of me. I'll
Wow.
just leave it at that.
Uh-oh. Well, that leaves us for part two, uh, to come later. Now you've got us
Okay.
curious. Yeah. So you want to, your website's beautiful. Do you want to share that link?
The website is creativevisualworkshop.com. Excuse me. And when you open it up, there's a cascade of color, and it's very light and joyful. And you have to go through the different pages to find all the good stuff. But I think the most important one to me is the about us, what we're all about, and about the artistic transformation, because that seems to help people mostly understand what we're about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful organization, and thank you for all the light you bring into the world, and look forward to connecting again soon. And thanks everyone for joining us today, either live or later. And feel free to share this, pass along to your friends. Thanks again, Barb. Many blessings and namaste.
Namaste.